How's it going, everybody? It's Grand here, back with another video for you. It's raining where I'm at. I don't know if you can hear that. It might make for an interesting ambiance in this video. Anyway, I wanted to give my thoughts today on something that's probably near and dear to all our hearts. This debate that's been going on for a while now in this sort of self-betterment, self-improvement community about video games. And there seems to be a large number of self-help influencers who say that you should give up video games completely and that they're pretty much incompatible with self-improvement. And obviously, as someone who has nothing but gameplay of Elden Ring backing up the visual element of my videos, of course you probably already know that I don't completely agree with this. However, I really don't also completely disagree with this. So I'm going to explore the nuance of this issue a bit today. Video games have been a part of my life ever since I was a young kid. The first video game I ever played was Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo, which was also my first console I'd ever owned. And when I look back, honestly, I don't think there could have possibly been a more dope combination for a young boy. The Super Nintendo was a 16-bit console and the successor to the OG Nintendo console, which was 8-bit, right? It was the original Nintendo. It was really when games first began to get more sophisticated because basically it was the first time games had the processing power to do so, and you began to see games and franchises that were before really simple start to get more elaborate with better, more colorful and detailed graphics and animations, and also more capacity to tell a narrative over the course of the game. So Mega Man X was the beginning of an almost reboot of the Mega Man series where the developers, they did just that. They improved on the original aspects in almost every way. I mean, if you're like a diehard Mega Man fan, I'm sure, you have your own opinion, but it's like now there was like almost like an edgy story, and you can get these upgrades that would allow you to dash all around, and like, I don't know, it was just much more fast-paced and sort of like an evolved version of the series. And I suppose I'm saying all this just to emphasize how damn amazing it was when I first held the Super Nintendo controller in my hands and first began to play. I still remember my dad showing me for the first time how to move and shoot and jump. I still remember him specifically explaining to me where the shoot button was on the controller. And I remember I took the controller and I did it and everything clicked immediately. And, now I look back on that and it's still like a very vivid memory. I must have been like 4 years old. And it still feels like one of the closest things to magic I've ever experienced. Ever since this moment, I was obsessed with Mega Man and obsessed with video games. And I imagine a lot of people's experiences with gaming and their early memories of gaming are somewhat similar. Just like often a very pleasant, incredibly nostalgic memory, perhaps of like a birthday or Christmas time, when just everybody around you was in good spirits and no one, most importantly, you yourself, had a care in the world. I imagine moments like these are why so many people become quote-unquote gamers, which is now a very well-known, almost universal term for someone who partakes in playing video games and almost to a degree makes it a point to have video games in their life and play on a regular basis. This is going to be controversial even to me as I say this, but I think it's around this point of becoming a quote-unquote gamer that for many people, especially many young people, that video games can and do become a detriment to their lives and to their growth. You see, when it comes down to it, there's only so much time in the day. There's 24 hours, and there's always been 24 hours, whether you're an adult or a child. And what I'm seeing a lot of these days are people who, at the expense of doing what would be something massively beneficial to their lives, like becoming more physically active or being more social, they spend that time playing video games. This is why, even as a gamer myself, right, if you're being honest, you have to concede that video games are being abused by a lot of people. And a lot of people don't even really know better, like younger kids whose parents just give them the Switch or give them the phone to keep them complacent. Like, when you see these kids who are obese starting at like 6, 7, 8 years old and all they do is game, that's just poor parenting, right? After you get past a certain age as an adult, if you're doing the same thing, you're obese playing games all day, that's like just poor living, I guess, at that point. And people will say like, oh, well, I'm an introvert or my kid's an introvert. while I completely agree that there's like a scale of a tendency towards introversion or extroversion, I also think that like most of the time you really are just what you do. And if all people, offer to their kids, or all you're offering to yourself, is being alone playing video games, of course you're going to naturally become a more introverted person. Like, even if you would enjoy going out and doing some sort of extroverted activity with other people, it's like introversion begins to become all you know. So I think you begin to see a lot of people in the gaming sphere are people who have retreated into introversion, and a lot of people in the sphere are beginning to suffer because while they spent so much of their time gaming, there were others out there who spent that time learning like a wide array of sort of more applicable skills which actually go a long way to help you in life, whether it's like playing a sport or an instrument or learning about cars or even working on a farm or something, right? And now these people who spent their time in the real world, they're a lot more socially adept and they're thriving in ways that the gamer kids aren't. And when it comes down to it, a lot of time you're going to be hitting a certain age and you're going to realize, like, boy, I wish I was popular. I wish I was respected. I wish girls were interested in me. And in fact, not having those things is actually really quite painful, right? And people will say, like, oh, that's so shallow. There's more to being, there's more to things than being popular. There's more than girls, right? And honestly, I'm just so over that crap because we're humans at the end of the day, and we aren't some non-feeling like robot type things. And it's like we need food, we need water, we need exercise, fresh air, sex, sleep, a mission, and some good laughs, and like that's about it. It's like you don't need to overcomplicate all this stuff. And all these people out here who are acting like that for 99.99% of people, that being respected and being successful with, the opposite sex, it wouldn't make their lives infinitely more enjoyable. They're just full of it, man. And, while some will live in denial, it's only going to make things harder for you because there's people out there who understand this and they're working on themselves. And there's good parents, right, who are, preparing their kids to thrive. They're getting them outside. They're making sure they're social. They're making sure that their kids, eyeballs aren't burning out at 10 years old because they're staring to a screen all day or whatever, right? Because you are what you do. Another thing I've noticed, which is really bad, is that once people have decided that they are a gamer or they're kind of nerdy or whatever, it's almost becomes their obligation to play games for a certain amount of time each day or to keep up on everything in the industry. That like even when a game isn't calling out to them, begging to be played, they'll still go out of their way to like find something that they can play. I think this is one of the signs that you've gone too far, right? That when you're just scouring the catalog for anything that might, pique your interest, right? Especially if you have other things like piling up that require your attention. I used to go to Family Video back in the day, and I think they're all shut down now, which is unfortunate, right? Because I really used to love Family Video, but even that was different because you had to go somewhere and you had to interact with people, and you would like walk around and look at the game art. This was before like reviews became such a big thing as well, at least before I was reading them. But, you at least have to get outside and like move around a little bit. And maybe you would like see somebody there you knew, or maybe the person behind the desk would like comment on your rentals, and there was some sort of a conversation struck up there, an interaction. It's changed a lot now, and like all that is really just more screen time now, basically. So really, it sounds like I'm going really hard against video games right now, basically, right, guys? I know what you guys are thinking, like, come on, man, we're literally watching you play Elden Ring right now. So obviously, I haven't abandoned gaming, and I don't believe at the time of me making this video that I have plans to, because like many of you, I think, video games and the gaming industry as a whole, honestly, it's always going to have a very special place in my heart. Like I said, the first time I ever played Mega Man X, it was like close to magic. And to say that games have never done anything positive for me or others is equally as much of a lie as saying that there's no negatives. And this is going to get very controversial as well. You see, I believe when gaming really began to go mainstream, it was with basically the first Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, and its sequel, and that's where I think you started to see like so many people who had otherwise never gamed begin to start playing. And while those games are actually, they had a good story themselves, they launched this sort of advent of this new type of like online competitive shooter and this online competitive like ecosystem, it's just almost always completely mindless. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to, trigger some people or crap on your favorite game, but it's like, man, I am really not a fan of all these endless cookie cutter online competitive games that like so many people are into. And the ones I'm talking about, these MOBAs, these hero shooters, Fortnite. It's like, come on, man, Christ, like I can't even pretend to have fun playing this stuff. But I'm not here to crap on your favorite games all day, but it's like, this is the point, that it's like, you look at like something like Mega Man X, and it's like, not only was Mega Man X the first game I had ever played, but it also may have been the first time I'd ever been exposed to the hero's journey. And before you say, oh my gosh, but Overwatch, it has heroes and they have stories, it's like, no, just stop, please. I'll use Mega Man for an example again, right? I forget the exact story, but he was a lowly prototype robot, right? He was like a maintenance cleaning robot, the story was, and all these other robots, which were stronger and more whatever robust, and they all got corrupted and they began wreaking havoc on everything. And of course, it fell into Mega Man's lap to step up and become the hero. And it's the beautiful hero's journey as old as time. It's like, Frodo, he's got to take the ring into the mountain. It's a story about taking responsibility and overcoming the odds and just being brave because you have a duty, right? It's the same thing as Navi when she wakes up Link as a young kid. He's like an Ocarina of Time, and she's basically like, yeah, it's time to go. We got like a destiny to fulfill. It's the same thing you see in Elden Ring or like any Souls game, where it's like you first start and your character is just this little shambling, like almost corpse type of thing. But over the course of the game, you get stronger and stronger. Or like Metroid, which actually it usually has its own spin on things, where like, you actually have the power-ups at the beginning of the game, but then they get taken away and you have to get them back, which is like its own spin on things. The point is, in all these games, it's like the hero's journey is prominent, and not just some random backstory, but it's actually reflected in the gameplay as well. You start off weak and feeble, but through your perseverance and your ingenuity, you push forward and you begin to go stronger until it inevitably culminates in like this final showdown with evil, where you've come so far from the beginning. It's beautiful, it's artistic, it's inspirational, it's what a lot of games used to be, and what a few still are. I think I was fortunate to have had these types of games put in front of me at a young age, because they got these concepts in my head early, that there is a good and an evil, and that with training, with practice, with forming connections, we can grow stronger and take on more and more than we thought was possible. I don't want to throw shade too much, but like, I bet if you look at the average person right now who considers themselves like a gamer today because they play the latest whatever first-person shooter multiplayer game, and you ask them to beat or even just make progress in like a Souls game or even Zelda, even like the newest Zelda game, right, the Tears of the Kingdom, it's like I have a feeling that they would struggle quite a bit. It's like gaming is now just associated with these very mindless kind of experiences. So it's like, now that I think about it, it's like, it's really no wonder why you get so many people saying that it would be best to just quit gaming altogether. I do like fighting games, though. I think that if you can get really good at a fighting game, it does sort of train almost like your reflexes, and there is like almost something that actually carries over into like real life fighting. Like if you can get really good at a fighting game, you can actually probably get pretty decent at real life fighting too. It's all the like knowing when to sort of pull back, when to block, when to push forward, when to see an opening. So I don't know. It's like I think fighting games are pretty dope. But I guess this is all culminating into me saying that I think it's important to be more mindful about your gaming, and perhaps to begin treating it similar to like enjoying a meal at a nice restaurant, or a fine wine, or a nice cigar, which is to say that if you want it to be in your life and not a detriment, that there's a time and a place for it, and perhaps it may be less than what you're used to. And just like you wouldn't smoke and drink cheap liquor all day long, because you wouldn't be able to function, right, or do like the important work in your life. It's just not healthy, right? You need to make sure your game consumption is something you partake in only when your real work is completed, and not something that you just use to put off your work. And that's a clear sign you maybe need to kind of step back a little bit, by the way. And then, when you do choose to play, that you are enjoying like a high quality product that you can enjoy and you can see it through to the end. And like when it's all said and done, it's enriched you and inspired you. I think that's probably the best way to incorporate video games and this desire to better yourself in this modern age that we're living in. So that's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. Maybe share the video if it's something you've been discussing with others. And I'd really like to hear your thoughts as well, since I know this is something where everybody is going to have their own opinions on. So please leave a comment and let me know what you think. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.